What's up, everyone? John Render from Techno Buffalo here. There are a ton of ridiculously awesome Android phones out there right now. It's hard to pick which one's best for you. Whether or not you want to go an S6, HTC One M9, you want to go the Nexus route, there are just a ton of options. So I thought I would take the last two phones that I've used as my daily driver, the Nexus 6 and the Galaxy S6 and the Galaxy S6 Edge. They're essentially the same phones. I'm not going to talk about the Edge features on either, so you could assume that this is a versus battle, essentially of both these devices versus the Nexus 6. They really bring some unique things to the table that no one has done before, but they're also very different devices. And I'm going to end this with one that I would pick if I had to pick one phone for the next 12 to 18 months, and hopefully it'll help you decide which phone is going to be right for you. Traditionally, I've liked really large screen phones, so obviously I was very excited about the Nexus 6. Then I got a chance to see the screens on the Galaxy S6, the Galaxy S6 Edge, and I became very impressed. For part of the video though, I'm just going to call it the Galaxy S6 and assume I'm talking about both because I'm just going to start garbling my words if I'm like S6, S6 Edge, Nexus 6, too many sixes. Let's go and get started. So these are phones first and foremost. You're looking at the screen almost exclusively. So let's talk about that screen. Same resolution on both phones. You've got a 2560 by 1440. It's 5.1 inches on the S6, and it's much larger on the Nexus 6 at 5.96 inches. Obvious differences in PPI and the screen size. It's 676 versus 493. All those specs don't really mean that much. They're really high resolution phones. What matters though is how you use them. I've had really big issues with screens outdoors. I'm outdoors a lot, I'm taking my son to the park, gotta check my phone, and I can't usually see it unless I turn the brightness all the way up. Actually had pretty good outdoor visibility on the Galaxy S6 line of phones. I was able to see it outdoors really well. I haven't been able to say that with many phones. I also had really good viewing angles. Once I got outdoors, the Nexus 6 though, even the brightness all the way up, it's a totally different story. I couldn't see it as well outside. I had to either squint to sort of do a little hand over the screen thing that we've all kind of done. Despite the same resolution, images look just sharper on Samsung's offering. Text looks a little bit crisper, colors look a little bit brighter. Some people can say they look a little oversaturated. That's mostly due to TouchWiz. You put a launcher on there, you're not going to see it. But things can look even a little bit washed out on the Nexus 6. It's not that it's a bad screen on the Nexus 6. It's actually a pretty good screen. It's just not the best one out there. When you compare it to what I consider now the flagship of screens on the Samsung Galaxy S6 line of phones, this one becomes a no-brainer. If screen's important to you, if outdoor visibility is important to you, Samsung is going to take this one. Obviously, performance is a big issue. In the reviews of both phones, I ran through quadrants and Antutu tests. That's not what this is about. This is about actual usage. The S6 has just an insane processor, the Exynos 7. It's got two quad-core processors for octa-core, just gargantuanness. Whereas Nexus 6 has, I guess, a more pedestrian quad-core Snapdragon 805. The bottom line, both are ridiculously fast. Yeah, the test score is going to be faster on the Nexus 6, but I have had zero performance issues on either phones. Both are fast, both open apps quickly, both scroll. There's no lag on either devices. The processor, you don't see much of a difference here, at least not yet in either of these phones. So if you're worried about how this is going to perform versus the octa-core, I wouldn't worry about that one at all. I have no preference in either one. Next, let's talk about that camera on the back. 60 megapixel on Samsung and 13 on the Motorola-built Nexus 6. Obviously, megapixels don't tell the whole story. They only really matter if you're trying to zoom in quite a bit. I will say I haven't been the biggest fan of Motorola's cameras recently in general, dating all the way back to the Moto X. Things did get better, but they haven't gotten great. This is kind of the same story as the screen. It's an average camera on the Nexus 6. Decent pictures, not great. Not the best in low light. The ring flash looks cool, doesn't really add all that much. There can be a lot of noise in pictures. It's usable, certainly, if you want to take pictures, upload them to Facebook or Instagram. It takes great 4K video, but it's not the best camera out there. Now, the Samsung camera is not the best camera out there either, but it's definitely better than what we're seeing right now in the Nexus 6, even with the software updates that have come. It's great in low light. 4K video looks awesome. The pictures came out really sharp, even when zoomed in. This is how I determine which one I would pick. If I have both of these on a table, and I'm going out for the night and I want to take pictures, and I want to just pick one phone, 10 out of 10 times, I'm picking up the Galaxy S6. All right, next let's talk about Android experience. Next device, you can get the latest offering from Google, and that is currently sitting at 5.1 on the sexy Nexus 6. On the Samsung devices, it's 5.0.2 with Samsung's TouchWiz on top. And listen, I've been really hard on TouchWiz in the past, like really hard on it. It's much better here. It's much more usable. You don't have to go through just a billion setups. You don't have to go through a ton of tutorials. The bleeps and bloops are all gone. The cartoonish colors are still there. In fact, after I did my review, and even towards the tail end of that, I put Nova Launcher on here and got rid of almost all of the TouchWiz stuff. But some of it is good. I think the quick launchers are really nice. I'm still not a big fan of how the settings layout is, but I can live with it. It's a much more usable experience than we've seen in the past. It's also 40% lighter. Having said that, though, I still prefer the look of stock Android. In fact, I use Nova Launcher because I wanted this to look more stock Android. So this is, again, a personal preference, but for me, based on just experience what Android's going to be like, I really like what the Nexus has to offer. So when it comes to Android experience, Nexus 6 all day. All right, so what about some of the random things in there? Obviously, there are a ton of other things we could cover, but I wanted to sort of talk about the most salient ones, at least to me. So battery, you've got a 2500 milliamp hour battery on the Galaxy S6. It's 50 milliamp hours bigger, just for a fun fact, on the Edge, and it's 3220 on the Nexus 6. Battery life on the Samsung phones is not awesome. You can charge it wirelessly, you can quick charge. I get all that. You can actually quick charge on both of them. But if you're not near a charger, you're not going to get long-lasting battery life. So be aware of that. Now, battery is not super stellar either on the Nexus 6, but it is definitely better. So if you have to go for a whole day, you don't have an external battery charger with you, can't plug in, then go Nexus 6. If you have the ability to sort of charge during the day, you can plug it in and carry an external charger with you, then it's not going to make that much of a difference. Neither has expandable storage, neither has removable memory, so it's kind of a wash here as well. But it comes down to which one I would pick. In fact, which one I did pick. I love the Nexus 6. This is one of my favorite phones that I've checked out, but I get the privilege of checking out every phone. And things tend to get better throughout the year as things get to be released. And that's kind of the case with the Samsung devices. And this is really one of the first times I can remember saying I prefer a smaller screen phone over the bigger one. I love giant screen sizes. In fact, I'm super excited, probably like you are, for what the Note 5 is going to be, or the Note 5 Edge, or they decide to call it. But if I had to pick one of these phones to use for the next 12 to 18 months, I'd pick the Galaxy S6. In fact, I'd pick the Galaxy S6 Edge just because I love the way that looks. If you want to see a versus battle between the two of these we did, we'll link that down below as well so you can see the difference. But I would pick the Samsung devices over the larger screen Nexus 6. And not to say Nexus 6 is a bad phone. It's still a great phone. If you want to pick one up, you get the option to buy it unlocked, use it on pretty much any carrier, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon. It's going to work right out of the box for you. But when it comes to the way the screen looks, when it comes to the features, and I hate to say it, but I still kind of like TouchWiz, I would go for the Galaxy S6. What do you guys think? Do you agree, disagree? If you disagree, tell me why. Don't just yell at me or call me names or call each other names in the comments. Give a valid reason why you disagree. I'd love to hear it. And I'll respond to comments. We can sort of have a discussion about it. Give the video a thumbs up. We always appreciate it. Until next time, I am John Ranger from Techno Buffalo. Hit the big subscribe button to get the latest and greatest tech news. And I will talk to you, dear friend, in the next video.